Mark Rogers TV, and we're still, yes, talking the NFL draft. We're about 2 weeks removed, but at the same time, we've got players from college football all over the place trying to make NFL rosters on opening day and going to work at OTAs right now with a number of NFL teams. We bring in Mitch Harper to talk about BYU's NFL draft prospects. Of course, they got the one big one, and then they got some guys that are just trying to make NFL rosters here. Mitch, thanks so much for joining us. We got Kyle Van Noy, of course. He's the big star. All-America linebacker, second round to the Lions. Detroit Lions love your playmakers on defense, of course, with Ziggy Ansah a couple years ago going in the top 10. 40th pick here, Kyle Van Noy. Your thoughts about his career at BYU, what he contributed there, and how he may transition to the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's a great landing spot for Van Noy. There was some talk, heading into the draft that maybe he might sneak in to the first round. I know that there was a lot of teams like the Chargers and a few other franchises that were really high on him and thought maybe he might sneak into that first round and give BYU back-to-back first-round draft picks for the first time since 2000. So that would have been a big deal for BYU, but still going top 40, there's obviously going to be high expectations placed on Van Noy, and he's going to be someone that's looked upon, obviously, to go into Detroit and start right away. He's a different type of player, though, now than what he was at BYU. You watch BYU highlights, he was a very slender, very athletic linebacker, and I think he's still going to keep that athleticism with Detroit, but he's packed on a lot of weight now. You see photos of him at rookie minicamp, and he's just got a different look to him. He's about almost 250 pounds, where at BYU he was playing at 225. So that's a different type of player. Going to play, a lot of franchises thought he was probably a 4-3 outside linebacker, maybe in the middle even at the NFL level. So it'll be interesting to see what Detroit does with him. Right now, they're playing him standing up at linebacker on the outside, so it'll be interesting to see how he does there. But it's great for Van Noy to be there with Ziggy, who went, like you said, in the top 10 of the 2013 draft and led all rookies last year in sacks with 9. So Ziggy and him, and what's great about that too is the fact that Van Noy basically taught Ziggy everything he knew about the game of football. When Ziggy came to BYU, he originally wanted to be a basketball player, and Dave Rose in the BYU basketball program gave him a tryout, and he got cut. And Ziggy, who had this freakish athletic ability, gave it a shot to maybe go play football, which is a sport he knew nothing about, coming from Ghana. Went to Bronco Mendenhall's office, and Bronco, as the story goes, looked at him and said, "Yeah, I'll give you a tryout, just seeing his size and stature." So Ziggy came, and Van Noy really took him under his wing, and he taught him how to put his shoulder pads on, and taught him really the game of football. And they were roommates at BYU. So it's a really great story that they're paired up again in Detroit and have an opportunity to play and do some big things at the National Football League at that level. And BYU has been a program that for years it always pumped out tons of NFL talent. From 1966 to 2010, every year there was an NFL draft pick, and even a number 1 overall in the USFL draft, Steve Young, or in the NFL supplemental draft when he came from the LA Express to the Bucks. And I want to say it was 84. That's right. Yeah, 84. So yeah, BYU had a storied history with pumping out NFL draft prospects, but there was a little bit of a lull there between 2011, 2012. BYU didn't have any, and that was kind of unfortunate, because for years it was always the storyline would be, if you get less than 2 draft prospects from BYU. But now it became, will they get 1? So getting Ziggy, who was the obviously number 5 overall, that was a big deal. But it was also a situation where I looked at and said, BYU that just fell into BYU's lap. I mean, BYU didn't recruit him. It was just kind of an amazing story. I mean, Ziggy didn't even start his senior year for BYU until Ethan Manu-Maliuna, who got an undrafted free agent gig with the New York Giants this year. Ziggy didn't even start, so who knows what would have happened if he never got the chance to go and start for BYU. We wouldn't even have him in the league. But Van Noy, though, that was a situation where Van Noy came in and was a big time recruit for BYU. He was part of the 2009 class and heralded by some recruiting websites as the most athletic linebacker out west. So there was high expectations, and for a highly regarded recruit at BYU to actually produce, because BYU's had a lot of talented recruits come in over the years, and most notably on the offensive side of the ball, especially at quarterback, but they've always tended to be busts, if you would, for the lack of a better term. But to get someone that was highly regarded and produce the level that Van Noy did, which was a once-in-a-lifetime type talent, and to see him go drafted high, that was a great thing for BYU. And I think hopefully it continues to be a positive trend for BYU now that they're getting some more positive buzz in the NFL with Ziggy, Van Noy, and also Dennis Pitta, who signed that $32 million contract. Good things for BYU at the next level, because that always is important, showing recruits, hey, we're going to get you to that next level. Take a chance on BYU, because there's a lot of, obviously, perceived drawbacks, but we can get you to the next level if you want to come here. So that was definitely important for BYU.
Yeah, and that's a great story, too, when you talk about Ziggy learning football from Van Noy. Now I hope he returns the favor, since he's getting top 10 money, top 5 money versus the second-round money, so he at least picks up the check at dinner.
You would hope so. You would think, hopefully, that they're doing that. Maybe he's going to buy him some shoulder pads now.
There you go. Well, Mitch, you know what the deal is with hardcore college football fans who watch the NFL draft. You see all these stars sitting and waiting through the 4th round and the 5th round, stars from college football. Then you see all these guys that nobody ever heard of, unless you're a really hardcore college football fan, or unless you really follow the NFL draft and you've been checking out the measurables, who are taken in the first 2 rounds of the draft, because obviously it doesn't always transition. NFL scouts are looking for different things than what we see production on the field in college football. So prime example right here, Cody Hoffman, most prolific wide receiver in the history of a passing school that has produced all sorts of exceptional offensive talent at the wide receiver position, all-time receptions, yards, touchdowns, all-purpose yardage, the whole deal. He has to wade through the entire 7 rounds of the draft, but he hooks up with the Redskins. Your thoughts about how he may do in the NFL?
Yeah. First, before we talk about Cody Hoffman, it is interesting with the NFL draft, because, like you said, when you think about all these guys that come out of nowhere and just emerge as these top candidates, you think with like the NBA draft lottery yesterday, we've known those top 10 forever, and with the NFL draft, it's just always this mysterious guy always rises for the ranks. So I'm glad to hear another college football mind think that same thing, because it's just so weird that these guys emerge out of nowhere. But yeah, Cody Hoffman going to the Redskins, after his combine performance, it was definitely an indication that he was probably going to be undrafted. When you have the lowest vertical, lowest shuttle amongst the wide receivers, that's never good. Now, I don't know how much if I hold much stake into guys wearing T-shirts and shorts. I know the NFL executives love that. I mean, that's why a guy like Ziggy vaulted up the boards. But Hoffman having those poor numbers at the combine was really an indication how strong the wide receiver class was this year. I mean, top to bottom, that wide receiver group this year was terrific. I mean, you could get great value in even the 5th and 6th round with how good these wide receivers were. So for Hoffman, who had gaudy stats at BYU, the all-time leading receiver in the history of the program, at a program that's had their fair share of success throwing the football, it was definitely unfortunate to see him not get drafted. But I think Redskins are an interesting situation so far. There's been a lot of positive storylines coming from Hoffman, that he's got a good chance to make that 53-man roster. And sometimes you look at 7th round undrafted free agent. I tend to lean towards getting drafted is better than being undrafted. But at the same time, you take a step back and think, this undrafted free agent, they get to kind of examine their situation. Someone's going to take them, and they can choose what they feel might be the best fit. And Hoffman chose the Redskins, and I think it could be a good situation for him. There also other undrafted free agents talk about combines with Hoffman. Daniel Sorensen, he was a guy that blew up at the NFL Draft Combine. At BYU, he was a safety who really kind of went under the radar. He was just a solid glue guy in a way of the defense, a terrific special teams guy. And I think that's where he's going to make his impact. He goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think with him having that versatility where he can play special teams, and also he was a pretty solid safety and a kind of an underrated in terms of athleticism. I mean, his combine numbers were some of the best amongst safeties in this entire combine. So the fact that he can do multiple things, I think he's got a great chance to maybe get on the 53-man roster, because when you get to spots 51, 52, 53, you got to do more than just one thing to make that roster. So that bodes well for Sorensen. Obviously, with the Chiefs, they have head coach Andy Reid, former BYU alum, so maybe that can help him out. Obviously the NFL is a business, but it's always good to have BYU ties there. And also Spencer Hadley, he went to the New Orleans Saints. Hadley was someone, after his junior season in 2013, many felt around the program that even though Van Noy was this, all-world talent, the preseason All-American, many felt that Hadley was arguably the best pass rusher on BYU's defense last season. His season didn't go according to plan, though. He had suspensions with off-the-field issues and then a season-ending injury against Wisconsin that derailed his senior year. But with the Saints, he got an undrafted free agent gig, and he already had like a pick 6 in rookie mini camp a couple days ago. So he's doing some good things. I still think it's kind of a stretch if he's going to make the 53-man roster, because you can just find so many good NFL-proven linebackers. I mean, that's a position where you can find a lot of guys. So it's going to be hard for him to stick. But obviously making some waves early on can only bode well. And then I mentioned earlier Ethan Manu-Maliuna. He was a five-year starter for BYU. He had a medical redshirt year one year. That year where things opened up for Ziggy, he goes to the New York Giants, and then but yeah, it was a good year for BYU in terms of the NFL. They also had some rookie tryouts with Kenny Akua-Friel getting a shot with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm very curious to see what happens with Uwana-Yunga. Had 123 tackles last year from the middle linebacker spot. Had an NFL Draft Combine invite. His season, though, his career had a huge setback with an ACL injury against Washington in the bowl game. I think if he would have been healthy, I think he would have had a shot to get drafted, because you just look at linebackers that just rack up the tackles like a Luke Kuechly. I mean, that's what Uwana-Yunga did for BYU. Just quiet, never really noticed, but at the end of the game you saw, wow, he had 18 tackles today. So Uwana-Yunga didn't get signed with anyone yet, but he's someone to watch for when he gets healthy. I think he gets a shot somewhere.
Yeah, and when I'm just going off the stat sheet here, but when I see Kenny Akua-Friel, tight end with only 11 receptions for you last year, I'm wondering why he gets an invite to an NFL camp. Was he injured? Is he just a freak athletically who just didn't find the field? What was the deal with him?
Yeah, it's very interesting with Friel. Honestly, watching him the past few years, I kind of felt he was maybe the second best tight end, honestly, but he had an amazing performance against Washington State in a season opener in 2012 that was nationally televised on the opening night of college football. It was a Thursday nighter, so everyone in the country who was jonesing for some college football saw that game probably, and he tore it up. He had 156 yards, and he was the national tight end of the week. So I think that's the game where he really made a name for himself. But I also think, to his credit, though, his senior year where BYU started running the football a lot more, he became a lot better pass blocker. So he wasn't utilized as much in the passing game like many had hoped. And the tight end position in general for BYU hasn't done much since Dennis Pitta back when he graduated in 2009. And we're obviously seeing what Pitt is doing in the NFL now with the Ravens. But Friel definitely had moments, and I think, though, that's why he only got a rookie tryout instead of an undrafted free agent contract like the others.
Yeah, and this group very successful in postseason play, 3-1 in bowl games, got to postseason play all 4 years running. So we appreciate, Mitch, the time and the attention to the NFL draft, and hopefully some BYU Cougars can latch on to some rosters on opening night.
Yeah, it'll definitely be very interesting to see. It's definitely good for folks around the BYU program to see former Cougars actually making an impact again at the NFL level.
Okay, Mitch, thanks so much for the insight and information.
No problem.